This is going to be talking around the role of programmatic working for brands and TV publishers in Australia. Here to lead that particular conversation from MI3 is Paul McIntyre. I'm going to invite Paul and his panel up to the stage and he can make the introductions. Please give them a very warm welcome.
Hi everybody, on, yes we are. So not even going to do introductions. They're up there, why waste some time? We'll have a decent convo on this stuff. I think we're probably outside of, just grab a seat anywhere. And I am going to move my chair around. We need an arc. We do need
an arc. I'm going to move this back.
Yeah. We'll just reorganise. So listen,
move back so that we can see Nick.
This, yes, we got our table stakes and admin right there.
End over there.
So listen, this is probably the second hottest panel I think of the day, behind Jason Burbidge, Guy Statham, whatever you want to call him, and the looks. But this panel's hot because we're talking about programmatic in the boom category of connected TV, CTVs, and video and BVOD and all the rest. And the killer stat that I saw this morning from our friends at Freewheel really sort of sets it up even better than what I'd hoped for Australia. If you remember the number, which I've written down, the percentage of CTV inventory that's being traded in the Australian market is 62%. In the US, it's 35%, and in the UK, it's 19%. So what the hell's going on with programmatic in this market, that in a boom early category, Australia is absolutely going crazy on programmatic and the trading, the automated trading of it. So we're going to dig into that and talk through a bunch of interesting developments, some observations from our panelists, and some curly questions, I hope, which I've sat up all night trying to work out. So there's 24 hours of effort, so good luck with the panel. God, it's a monster panel too, righto. Let's go. So we're going to start. I just want to go through, firstly, each panellist. We're going to set up with this question, and I just want a little bit of your business. Before you answer the question, talk to the room about what you're up to in terms of where your business is at, just a bit of audience, what you're doing, but very quickly. We don't want to waste time on the big spruik. So the question for all of you is this. What is the question?
Something about programmatic.
You know, I'm sorry, I'm trying to be funny, it didn't work. So anyway, so has premium professionally produced video learned from the programmatic, literally, I've been in newspaper publishing, the programmatic shit show that happened 15 years ago with publishers. I saw it, it's going to save you, it's going to give you margin, it's all going to be good, and actually the opposite happened. So we're in this right at the edge of where premium video is going to be openly traded or going to go into exchanges, DSPs and so forth, and that's the primary driver, which it already is in Australia. How do we avoid it going down into what we saw happening with display, and for publishers, news publishers, and any sort of publisher really 10 years ago? That's probably the first thing I want to start with. And so, Pippa, over to you. You're new into, well, actually there's three people on this panel, Jordan and Nick and Pippa, who at one stage were all holding hands and working together, weren't you? And now you're sort of
for one week, but we didn't hold hands.
1 week of okay, right. 1 week of United Nations.
We held hands for 5 years.
Pip, give us your lowdown of where you're at, what you're doing, and then this whole notion of how do we avoid, particularly on the sell side anyway. The buy side want the opposite, but the sell side, so we're represented. But how do we avoid it?
Okay.
You were there.
All right. So I'll put the caveat out there that, our TV business, news working with Tubi, is we took it to market 3 weeks ago. So it's all new, but clearly in my old world, we did a lot of thinking about how BVOD would be traded, and we didn't want, the reason we came up with the term BVOD, and Jordan, you'll probably remember us doing it, is because we didn't want this long form, full screen, high quality, unskippable, sound on, targetable, addressable ad units to get rolled up in, the long tail, or to end up looking like YouTube. We needed to tell the market it was different. That's why we invented the term broadcast video on demand.
That's when you were at 9.
That's when I was at 9.
Yep.
So interestingly, at news, I can't really talk a lot about the Tubi business and how it's being sold. But what we do know from our display business is that we don't lump programmatic under one heading. And I think I'd want to ask a question of that 62%, how much of it's programmatic guaranteed and how much of it is open exchange. Because in the programmatic world, there's a very clear division between non-guaranteed and guaranteed. In the non-guaranteed world, that's where you get your bad actors. Lots of arbitrage, lots of shitty third-party data, lots of last-click attribution, lots of shady stuff, MFAs, it's all going on out there. So News has made a very intentional decision to try and hold back as much of our inventory out of that world as possible. So I'm glad to sit here today and say less than 8% of our entire display inventory ends up over there. We work hard to make sure it comes in either as programmatic guaranteed or still direct sold is still better for us.
And you can't talk to what you're going to do with Tubi yet, but you better tell...
Okay, but I will say this. If I'm sitting up here in a year's time and 50% of Tubi is ending up in the open exchange, I haven't done my job. I deserve to be fired. Like, our job is to not end up in the open exchanges. It's to convince buyers to either come and deal with us programmatic guaranteed, where they can get all the benefits of programmatic trading, they can get our wonderful first-party content, and get all the ease of transaction, all the good parts of programmatic, without the shady shit parts.
Okay, good. We're going to come back and explore some of the stuff very quickly. Tubi, so obviously, big US streamer, you've got the rights, and so you're talking about, what, 1.45 million users so far in Australia, and you want to double.
It's about it's between 1.1 and 1.3, so we kind of sit snuggled behind 10play. We haven't even started promoting it. It's, when we go out and talk about it in the market, people are just like, what is it? They just don't know.
Yeah.
What's interesting about why it's so popular in the US, and not many people would know this, 55% of the Tubi audience is Gen Z. It is hugely popular with younger age groups. They want to be able to go in and choose their own rabbit hole. And so, on that continuum...
It's a nice profile adjuster for News Corp, which
it's
sort of
a
goes a bit old
wonderful profile for News Corp.
Right, yeah.
I mean, we love it, and we're really excited about it. But I won't talk more about it.
We got that one. Thanks, Pippa. We'll come back and visit a bunch of stuff you talked about. Jade, so you're on the buy side at GroupM.
Yeah.
So your sense on can we avoid the sort of the pitfalls that we hit in programmatic around publishing and display some years ago. What's your sense, and give us your take on that?
Yeah, it was interesting to hear it be called a shit show. I've been working in programmatic for the last 10 years, and we've been kind of navigating. Well,
was it a shit show, Jade? Do you think it was?
I don't think it has been a shit show. I think it's it certainly has challenges, and we're coming up with more and more challenges as we become more and more fragmented. But I think the interesting thing is that the ways we've learned to navigate it and the ways we've kind of learned to work around it. And BVOD on programmatic, I've seen some of the most amazing execution work done by our clients. At the moment we're kind of doing these things like hyper geo-targeted campaigns and people wanting to integrate first-party data. And yeah, I would say to kind of call it a shit show feels a little bit like
Sorry,
outdated.
I was talking about
Are you
display.
talking about open exchange?
I'm talking, it can be done on both. It's harder when you try and say that we're only going to allow inventory to go through a PG pipe or a UFR pipe, because it does mean that we kind of have to navigate who's going to do what in what way. But yeah, and I've been working really closely into our ATV business, aka Finecast, because we couldn't go a year without changing a naming convention of a business. But the closer we get into CTV, it's kind of, we have been doing, amazing work with our clients for years.
So let me clarify, the shit show was programmatic in publishing, not for what we're talking about video. That's just, I want to make sure that you still think I'm wrong, that's cool. So the next bit is though, that are you surprised, Jade, by that 62% figure from Freewell? 62% of CTV inventory being traded in Australia now. Does it surprise you or not?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all, because that's kind of in line with what we're seeing in how much is going programmatic versus how much is going on a direct IO.
Okay.
So that would be exactly where I would expect it to be.
Where you're sitting, and that's what would, your ratios would be around that?
Yeah, exactly the same. So I think, and the thing is, the more and more things that get released into the programmatic ecosystem, I would say you'll start to see, my guess would be you'll start to see the buying method follow that as well as we get more things released.
Okay.
If we do.
Yes, thank you. We'll come back. Alex, Samsung ads, you've been in this market.
LG ads.
Sorry, LG, sorry. It's up there. Because someone, well, I'm not even going to get myself out of that shit show. That is a shit show, so we'll leave it alone. But LG Ads, you've been in the market 3 months, in the Australian market, right? You've got some really interesting observations on the UK, but just give us your sense on the programmatic stuff for LG.
Yeah, so we've been selling into the Australian market for a few years, either through internationally or through reseller partners. Boots on the ground, yes, January this year, so I'm pretty new to the market. I think in terms of the programmatic question, I definitely agree with the view from GroupM that to call it a shit show is definitely outdated. I think the phrase programmatic can mean different things to different people. It doesn't mean run-of-network blind buys, open PMPs, and not understanding the inventory you're buying. I think what Australia does...
There's a bit of that, though.
Well, I think it depends,
I'm just
depends who
saying
you
the
work
market.
with, I guess. I think what Australia does well is the kind of direct publisher deals, agreeing the pricing, understanding the inventory, and that negates a lot of that issue. And I think, yeah, comparing CTV to open web programmatic from 10 years ago can't be compared. In terms of us, we have 2 slightly distinct products. So CTV video, we have our own streaming app. That's 100% programmatically activated in this market. And then we have CTV native, which is the product of the streaming clients that we work with, and that's primarily direct IO.
And what's your audience for LG Ads, Alex? What's the audience size in Australia?
So we're the second largest OEM, just under 2 million monthly active LG households.
Okay. We're going to come back. Oh, no, I wanted to ask you, are you surprised by the 60% in Australia? The UK, where you've come from, is what, I think I said 19%. What's going on there, Alex?
I mean, it's high. I guess that shows how forward-thinking the market is here. I guess I've only been here for a short period of time. Everyone told me before I came how kind of programmatically forward-thinking this market was compared to others, and I think that stat really highlights that.
Okay, cool. Jordan, so you're colleagues, but you're at 7 now, and you've been around a little bit. So are you also going to say, Paul, you're full of shit about the shit show? Is there lessons? Because the point there is there lessons to be learned?
I'm going to say there were a lot of lessons. I doubt if you said to any publisher, you could go back 10 years, would you set it up exactly the same for your display? We're here to talk about video, but for your display. I doubt any publisher who really understands would say yes. In saying that, I wouldn't say it was a shit show. I'd say that it sort of got diluted and things changed, technology changed globally that like domestic publishers had no chance of understanding or keeping up with. You talk about made for advertising websites where the content is generated. You've got some international DSPs who think hamburger.com's the biggest site in Australia just because of the way that stuff's generated and sent out. So, that type of thinking and that setup of that dependency, I don't think we would have gone for. We did know that going into BVOD though, when we set it up, and by we I mean sort of the broadcasters and some really key sort of technology partners. And so it was always directed to be through deals. Like it was always a deals-based marketplace. And actually, like in the start, a lot of it wasn't PG. PG's sort of been a thing that's come over the last 3 years. A lot of it was UFR, suited the way that the agencies wanted to do it to sort of adapt to programmatic, which worked really well for all of us. When you say that 62% stat, I'm wondering who's letting the team down. Because, most of the publishers would be 65% or so. But that definition of programmatic is not remnant. That is one-to-one deals. That is conversations with Jade. That's conversations with the buyers, with the agencies, everybody understanding what they're getting and sort of it being an efficiency to inventory as opposed to just sort of old school programmatic remnant.
Okay, so what percentage of your inventory though is not programmatic guaranteed or is in and being distributed elsewhere?
Yeah, it would probably, okay, so if we were to split, let's just use 65, it would probably be about 50-50. But it's all like, of that other 50, like 99.5% of it would be through one-to-one deals or one-to-many, but deals that have been brokered. Like the open exchange, like there's a bit of it on desktop. My guess is it's the same for the other publishers. Other than that, open exchange is just not where BVOD inventory gets brokered in Australia, just not how it's set up.
Okay, so Nick Young down the end there, the last but not least from 9. So your take on this, and I'm just going to defend. Did I say something funny then? I didn't mean to, but sorry. Was I rude?
It was me. Carry on.
It was you being rude. Okay, I didn't hear it too far away. The point here is that Freewheel's presentation this morning actually said, so I'm looking to defend myself on my shit show comment, but he basically said we're at a fork in the road for programmatic, and it can go value, sustainable, and up. This is for video, long form premium video. A fork in the road, it can go quality and value and sustainable, or it can go downhill and it can go the same way as what we've seen some other commoditized. So Nick, over to you. Your take. Are you okay? You're good with where things are at right now?
Oh, fucking hell. I've got a new boss as well.
So
No.
No, you're not.
I agree with you. I think display is a shit show. Okay. Take a step back. Fucking hell, go harder. You don't believe what you just said. I got this from him. There's three things I think that make display a shit show that directly affect BVOD or SVOD. And it's the disintermediation between sales and clients in terms of that ad tech layer that fuck display, right? Because you can bid on it and fucking find anything.
This is between the media owner and the client.
Yeah.
The intermediaries.
First of all the intermediaries. Secondly, bundling, homogenization of inventory. The SMH or news.com is nowhere near, but it is valued at almost the same as those made for advertising sites, because technology has just fucking wiped it and bundled it.
Yep.
That's a massive issue. And then thirdly, lack of supply chain transparency, all right? And there's a lot of hands in that till. And that's display. BVOD, to the other guy's point, is absolutely on the verge of going hugely down that route, right? And I know this is supposed to be really positive, and you've let me down. I thought you were going to go harder. But that is an absolute fucking reality of where we sit. And you go into rooms with clients and ad tech and media owners and everyone, agencies and everyone, and they talk about the US and how the US is going. And that is all of those things, like a year ahead, 2 years ahead of us. And that's deaf to us. If we can't charge a premium, and I'm not talking about free-to-airs, I'm talking about long-form, premium, quality video, be it Amazon, ourselves,
Yeah,
Foxtel,
you were
whatever.
rolling Willie Pang into this.
Yeah,
when we had the
100%.
conversation.
I
Yeah,
disagree with him on one thing, but we'll come to
benchmark.
that later. All of us together have to charge a premium for that. And if we're homogenized and bundled in with loads of other crap, we're buggered. Now, I think we do have to understand, though, what got us to this stage and also what we're facing now, because it's unfair to blame the media owners. We absolutely are complicit. We are in control of our own inventory. But we have got a tsunami of people for it. Ad tech telling us to go biddable, which is exactly what got us into display's issue around it. You've got SSPs, DSPs carving out their own little niche. Agencies, holdcos. I love you. You know I do. I have to. But I do love you. But you talk about collaboration, like VOD streaming. When we did VOD streaming and we started that what's now come about is still very good, but it's a watered-down version of how hard we wanted to go. And because that rubbed up against certain sort of models, we instantly got picked apart. Well, if you don't do it, 7 and 10 will do it. So there is a whole world out there of self-interest that is trying to come to us and get us to homogenize our inventory, sign up to products that we don't agree with, fucking curate and all shit like that. Like, those things do not benefit us, but we're dangled short-term little revenue gifts for long-term pain. So, hold on, one more. So your point of your 19%, in the UK, the free-to-airs networks do not trade their inventory programmatically. I don't think we should do that. We've scaled very quickly, they've taken long. But we have sacrificed long-term control for short-term revenue gain, and we have to join together and collaborate with products and services, join together on tech and data, and compete on content in order to sort of brace ourselves for that tsunami.
See, but I don't, like, having been to the UK and spoken to all those guys, and Alex, I know you're going to disagree with this, like, I would say that it's because they've got a lack of sophistication in programmatic and understanding that it's 19%. I don't think it's been deliberately set up like that.
I don't disagree, but
I think it's sort of fallen that way.
I went away with them
but we
3
have
months
control.
ago. We were a bellwether of what not to do for them. They've got the money.
You came back quite confident then, Nick, did you? What was this, the last couple of weeks or something you've come back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was before Christmas.
Right.
We have to join together and have unified products and services,
Well, absolutely. And listen, we're on question 1, so we're in a big shit show, really, basically.
And they added time.
There's no way we're getting through all the questions.
But I do want to come back. So look, there's so many questions out of that, and one is before I move on, you talked about we have to get together. Does that mean that you're talking about BVOD and SVOD, or is this about the broadcaster system? And are you, as the broadcaster system, going to get together and do a platform that might be where everything is traded? Is that possible? Should it happen?
Look,
what's the reality?
Look, I can't. If any, yes, okay, right, yes. Like-minded inventory sources should come together to create fair exchange of value for what they are, and more importantly, the ability to fair measure them. How do you know how well premium content does as an industry, as a group, if we're bundled in with loads of other cheaper inventory sources? You can't judge our effectiveness. So agencies tell me, well, you need to prove your effectiveness. Well, if you're bundling our inventory in with all video solutions, how do we do that? So yes, we need to come together and be confident of the fact that our premium inventory drives a better result and therefore deserves a higher value as a result of that, a fair value of that. And we need to provide products and services that make sure that that inventory can be measured effectively. And I'm not saying that it has to be OzTAM, but more importantly around sort of data and measurement, those things that we can look at outcomes-based. Yes, I do think that.
So you're going to build a walled garden around premium video, long-form video, walled garden around that in terms of a trading platform?
Everyone will tell you, if I say walled garden, Basie will be in the press in 5 minutes saying, not another walled garden. Although I will say this, the walled gardens are doing pretty well.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
People
don't like it,
it's
but
like looking at Michael Jordan and saying, I don't want to be that good. You know, they're doing pretty fucking well. You know, there's so many walled gardens that are doing really, really well, but I think it's about providing solutions for clients that are meaningful at scale in a combined ecosystem that can be judged in its own merits.
Jade, can I ask you, because you're the buy side here, look, you've just heard this tirade, and what do you
No, I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah,
Excellent.
by the way, it's a good thing to hear, Nick, by the way. Keep going, Jade. So what are your thoughts on what you've just heard here in terms of actually the for a premium video player like for Nine, saying what Nick's just said? How do you reconcile that with the buy side where literally it's the opposite way for you?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's quite challenging to say like coming together now, because I feel like that would be like very meaningful if they were like the only provider for video in market. Like we're obviously coming into like such fragmentation that it kind of needs to encompass like a lot more than just like the premium providers. Like you need to be encompassing a lot more in terms of like measurement.
Okay, so that means then, like premium video, is this was what I interpret Nick's trying to say is we need to put a stake in the ground and say there is premium video that is in long form that is different to the rest of the video market, which you can access, but it might be through whatever he's going to build, and Jordan secretly, I don't know what it is yet, but we'll find out. So there is now we've got sort of an interesting buy-sell divergence, and so how do we reconcile that? And this is the last question on this question, Alex, but I want your view on it, because you're sitting in the middle of both premium long form from broadcaster, and you've got content and you've got an audience. So where do you sit in this one?
I mean, I guess in terms of a reference to the UK, ITV built their own DSP called Planet V. I think the goal of that initially was a bit of a fuck you to the walled gardens to say, you can buy our inventory via programmatic means, but you're going to do so on our terms.
But that's a white label, right? It's not, they didn't build it.
Correct, yeah. But I think the view of that is potentially to work with other broadcasters in the future. Time will tell. Back to your question. I guess we sit in an interesting position. As an owner of the TV and as an owner of the viewership data within the TV, we can see the splits between streaming and linear, BVOD, AVOD, free, paid. There's a wealth of data that we sit on. We do a lot of work with streaming apps. They're our biggest customers, and they're using that intelligence to make better decisions on their audiences and how to grow their customer base. So, it's a big topic.
But how are you trading your own inventory though? So how are you going right into programmatic?
It's probably, we can't really be compared to a 7 and a 9. Our business is 5 years old. We were born in a streaming world, so everything for us is programmatically enabled. I'm not sure it can be compared. I guess on the native side, that is more of a direct IO sponsorship takeover buy. that remains on a direct IO for now. That may change in the future, but that's kind of our current.
Okay, so let's get to question 2. Woo, how much time we got? Okay, so we will loop back right at the end, Nick, on some solves and sort of some other things and what you've brought. I hope we will anyway. So let's go to the next one, which is we have seen more than a doubling of competitors in the Australian market chasing traditional broadcast dollars, ad dollars. It used to be just YouTube. Now, obviously, we've got all the streamers. I want to ask each of you the rapid arrival of the SVODs with ads. Has it been good, difficult, or damaging for each of you and your businesses, and more broadly, the market? So the market, I won't even answer it. I'll go down the end and we'll come back this way. Nick, has SVOD been good?
Absolutely. I mean, We've got a relationship, obviously, with Max, where we're selling their inventory as of launch last week, and we will be doing the same for Stan in the coming months. But I think broadly, as a category, it's been the best thing ever. It's really put a great focus on premium long-form content. That's what it's about. It's not about free-to-air. I'll go down, it's about live and VOD, but it's about premium content, and all the other players that have come in from the US have been brilliant. If only so I don't have to hear stories of, there's no future in long-form content anymore. My daughter watches TikTok all day, all that conversation stopped. Yeah. You know, now everyone recognises that their daughter will be 35 and as jaded as I am and necking a bottle of wine while watching maths. Do you know what I mean? Like that, your viewing habits change. Right, so, they just do.
Well, look, you're speaking the truth. Most people in the room would go, geez, he's bang on, but I wouldn't say that myself. But that's good. I'm glad you have, Nick. Thank you. Because I will say the same thing. I've got no problem with that. But you're saying at a market level, it sounds like you're saying it's been good for the market.
It's been great.
What about for Nine and your business?
Absolutely. I generally think that it's attracting more eyeballs, more money into the sector, more value into the sector. I think Amazon have done a great job coming in. They've got their own DSP, their own control. They've got it all, their own data. You know, I think all of them, you know, they control the process all the way through. They know how to represent their information. The agnostics thing I'll come on to later, but you know, I think I think all of those players coming in has been great.
So do you believe Willie and Amazon's goodwill for the industry, that it wants to help everyone, not just Amazon? Are you buying that?
Oh, someone else. Oh yeah, I think initially, yeah, I absolutely generally do, and then they'll do what DV360 do, and they'll build it all up. DV360 are in market; they're not neutral. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You were at the conference the other week. You tell them what they said.
Seen them before. So, but let me say, there's lots of talk, well, not lots of talk, some talk around Willie's DSP, or Amazon's DSP, really. Actually, Willie doesn't own it, not that I know of. But the Amazon DSP is actually trading a lot of BVOD because they can link through the funnel that he's talking about, that Willie talked about on stage. So, are you seeing your inventory move through Amazon, Jordan, the broadcasters, and then I'll get Alex too?
I mean, a bit, but it's had major issues with some of the ways that it transacts inventory, right? So, it's probably not taken off the way that it would.
What do you mean by that? What's the issue? What are you saying, the way it transacts?
Well, it's still, as now, I think it's pretty much fine as a product, but all these technologies have teething issues, like SSPs, DSPs, it all does. And so, I think it had a few bumps at the start of its journey, which is to be expected. I think it's firing now. I'll just loop back to the question of, are all the sort of streamers coming in a good thing? I would say they're a terrific thing. Maybe with the exception of Amazon, in all reality.
And why though, Jordan?
Why Amazon, or why?
Why not?
Why
Willie?
are they good?
Why not Willie? Why not Amazon?
It's not about anyone individually.
I know. I'm hamming it up. It's all right.
Well, because we're coming out a concentration on premium video is a fantastic thing. To Nick's point, it's brilliant because it changes conversations, it puts money in, but having and as competitors, if they don't control attribution, if they don't control analytics, if they don't control the major buying platform, the major selling platform, and the major ad server, as a competitor, that's much more appealing because it feels like a much fairer fight. And that's what we want ultimately. That's the point of Oz streaming, is just get us in the conversation. We just want to have the same conversation. We think premium content is better than user-generated content. We think we've got more scale. So let's build one big thing. We want all of the streamers to come in. That's ultimately, I'm not here representing Oztan, but that's what we want. There's no division there. Everybody's been invited. If they adhere to the rules, it's great. We want that to be part of the ecosystem moving forward. Tubi, if they'll come in on the rules, as far as I'm concerned, they're in. So that.
Would you, Pip? Would you go to Oztam? Would you be? Was it like, I know you can't say anything, but you can. Is there any interest? Like, are you open to it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, cool. That's all.
100%.
Sorry, Jordan, not interrupt. I just want to check that.
No. I think.
Okay, so you're saying it's been good for the market. SVOD's been good for the market. It's been
Brilliant.
good for 7. What about for 7?
I think that I think that we're coming off like statistically our best quarter. So yeah, you would have to say that direction for 7+ and 7 is only getting better. We're stabilising. We're in a really good position. We're monetising AFL. We're doing a really good job at that live digitally. So it feels like overall the momentum in the market is terrific.
Okay, let's go to the next question, and then I'm going to go to Jade and then Alex. So this is about some of the conversations we've heard this morning as well, in that does programmatic at a real level on the street, can it distinguish, and does it in the main not distinguish between an impression being a quality impression and a non-quality impression? How do you get through that? Because this is what Nick and Jordan and Pippa have been talking about. It's what we heard this morning. How do you get there?
Yeah, it is challenging to kind of distinguish between all of the different kind of areas that you can buy in for streaming now, right? And that's part of kind of our job in programmatic, in a holding group, is to kind of explain and advise clients where they should be buying. But realistically, I think it is starting to level out because, people are going to be looking more towards being in on a device level, and they want to be on those big screens. And there's a lot of research behind, being on that big screen does drive ROI for clients and short-term goals. So I think as long as you're kind of achieving those things and you're doing it efficiently, we can obviously advise and be what kind of inventory, but as long as it's kind of getting those goals, it can be challenging to always kind of try and push towards something if there are lots of things that could achieve that.
Right, okay, but lots of things that can achieve it. There's a slide put up this morning by, I can't remember who, which looked at the view counts for each of the platforms. Now, I mean, it's a really good, now I'm not a trader, so does it come into, for instance, the BVOD at 15 seconds, social or Meta was at 2, YouTube somewhere else, and there was some of the SVODs at 10. So suddenly it's not apples for apples. How do you, at the moment, it seems to me the broadcasters have talked for a long time about the gold standard and measurement. Maybe it doesn't bloody matter anymore. Does gold standard actually matter if you guys are buying on stuff that's, okay, so you're comparing 5 seconds with 15 or whatever it might be? Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it is challenging with measurement as well, because even if you try and apply the best gold standard of measurement, because we're becoming fragmented in the tech that we're using, it can be really challenging to apply that all the time consistently. So we're kind of running a lot of studies around validating that on a third-party lens, and we've done kind of 2 in the last year, which have had really interesting results. But it is really challenging to kind of come up with what
Alex,
that gold
how do we
standard is.
the definitions in the market? So an impression is they're all the same. Your sense on that, and how you build an understanding in the market that there is a difference, if you believe there is.
My personal view is I think it comes down to the device and the environment that this impression has been served and thus watched in. I firmly believe, big screen, a TV or a smart TV, full screen, sound on, non-skippable inventory around premium long-form content is going to drive the best results for a brand in the short and the long term. The data earlier indicates that. Clearly, there's a big trend of attention measurement. Australia's been great for that in terms of measuring effective attention based on different channels. I'm sure that's going to be a currency that will become more mainstream as time goes on. I think that it's the environment for me.
Okay, Jordan,
you can't compare seeing a 30-second non-skippable ad on a 56 OLED to watching it on the bus for 2 seconds as you're scrolling through Instagram. It's not.
Yeah, well, so Jordan, I might ask the question for you. So Alex talked about device being the cue or the signal for a quality impression, but we are seeing short form on CTV, we are long form on mobile, etc. So in terms of how you change the market, or do we need to change the market on an impression? Is it buying? Basically, is it commoditized impressions, or do you feel in programmatic that it's finding your way through this?
I think, like, as the publisher, you have a lot more control than we're sort of being made out to be. Like, we're not sort of, you know, snails on our backs. Like, you've got the opportunity to set the rules and the pricing and the various levels at the various access points, right? So if you want your CTV inventory during the AFL Grand Final and PG to be a higher CPM, you have that opportunity. And so, like, all of those mechanisms are at your disposal. So
I understand the control bit, I understand that, but what I'm asking is, like, does the market understand that? So you would argue that your impression, or a longer form, there's an impression that's higher quality than others. And
there's a hierarchy, yeah. Absolutely. Like, of course there is, but like, in that hierarchy, it doesn't mean that they don't have value at any point in it.
Sure,
like,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm sort of not sure what the question is there, because it's like, yes, there's a hierarchy, as there are in most things. Is that delineation in the pricing strategy and things like that? That's up to the individual publishers with the buyers and the deals and the
yeah. And I'm asking though,
reality.
is the market valuing the impression at the right rates? Nick, so Jordan, if you want to go there, but otherwise, Nick. So this is the thing, the impressions. Do you believe that Nick, in the programmatic trading market or in the view from online, are they buying impressions at the right value based on what it can do for a brand? That's your business, long form, for instance.
I think the market will design that, yeah. And at the moment, I think that long form attracts a premium, SVOD attracts a premium, and I'm comfortable with that. The maintaining of that through proving effectiveness is going to be the challenge. And again, I'll go back to the point, how do you prove effectiveness when you'll be bundled with lesser inventory types?
I think Karen said it this morning when she said not all impressions are created and not all views are created equal. So I don't think it's crazy to suggest that with all these new SVOD players and Tubi's, you know, not even SVOD, it's just AVOD, coming into the market, we are beginning to see a continuum of, like, premium right through, and I would put YouTube at the other end. Tubi's probably here, but, you know, you've got all these other players, and exactly as Nick and Jordan said, you know, it's not just devices, it's not just, you know, determining whether an impression is premium or not. It's the content and environment as well as the device. And we're going to have to get more sophisticated about understanding, especially the buyers, that there's now a continuum and they all play different roles and they all have different audiences. And everyone needs to get smart about what they are. Whether you think you can go and just buy a lot of cheap reach with some unknown data attached to it, that's not going to work out well in the long run.
I can see Jade slumping. How do you do that, Jade? I guess, what are you thinking right now? It's like, what's next?
Well, it's just challenging because, like, it's easy to say that, but I mean, we've still got, like, a significant portion of spend going into those channels like YouTube and advertising.
Well, I'm not saying that
what I mean?
spending in YouTube is wrong. It's just that we've got to understand that there is now a continuum and they play different roles. Trying to mix them all up together is not going to work and say that all impressions are equal. We're past that now. We're into a more sophisticated understanding and everyone needs to get on board with it.
We got 3 minutes and we got to 3 questions, so well done when I mapped out about 14. So listen, let's wrap it up. I basically think we've got enough time for everyone just to have a sort of a bold call or a look out in the next 12 months where you feel both your own business and the market will be in this. And we've had some pretty interesting, you know, cross balls, what are they called? Curveballs, even perhaps, so about the broadcaster, about a broadcaster-led trading platform. I think it's very interesting, and we will pursue that one. But let's start from this end. The next 12 months, the big sort of your big watch out or call for what's going to happen in programmatic.
Will be you will see a consolidation of some of the players. It's very fragmented. It needs to consolidate.
In video, in long form video, you mean?
In technology that supports how we get it into market.
Okay.
So we'll see that. And then we think that we're going to see, inevitably, a move away from just cheap reach to much more outcomes-based buying.
Even in programmatic?
Yep, and just remember, when you say programmatic, are you talking non-guaranteed or guaranteed?
Okay, point taken.
You know, because in guaranteed, you are doing a deal. There is an outcome.
Jade, next 12 months, what's from you, your buy-side complexity?
I think the biggest complexity is going to be more clients, more advertisers asking for us to be smarter, to be looking at more ways to integrate data. And I think we're going to be coming into an area where it's going to be even more challenging to do so. And my second thing would be, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the ad formats start to look like as well in this kind of new space. I think people want to be connecting that large screen into the small screen and kind of looking for really interesting ways to do that.
Oh, you just, I could ask you, but we haven't got time. Thanks for that. Thanks for the tease. Alex, in terms of the next 12 months?
I think the big change is going to be kind of device and kind of ACR-led data sets are going to go more mainstream. Obviously heard the news this morning. Nexon and Samba working with OzTam, which is very exciting for that category. So I think that's going to be a big change in the next 12 months.
And very quickly, in terms of, because LG's got great visibility on TV sets and sales, where have you got some numbers there quickly, Alex, in terms of how TV set sales are going and the connected part of that? Or is
I guess from a kind of time spent perspective, we see that kind of just under 70% of total time on our TVs is streaming. We've had a good year of sales. Australia loves OLEDs and they love big screens. That's what LG does very well. So yeah, I mean, it continues to boom. I think the stat earlier was, I think like 95% of Australian households have at least one smart TV. I've seen other data which shows...
I got 23, I thought it was. 23 don't have it, sorry. So what was it? Doesn't matter. Anyway, well, it doesn't matter, sorry, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But,
and 1 in 4 having more than one. So you know, the infrastructure for streaming is there.
Jordan, final sort of take,
I think with more inventory, there'll be more scrutiny on the quality of the inventory.
Okay, that's very sharp and succinct, and that's going to happen in the next 12 months. We'll come back here and we'll find out. Nick?
I've got a call out. If you're interested in creating an ecosystem that is clear, transparent in its supply chain, judged on premium inventory in its own right, and that you control the narrative in market. Talk to Julia Edwards, our head of programmatic at 9, because I'll be out of a job, I think, after this. Or certainly sued by Google, so either way. But no, on a serious point, I think that that's something that we haven't got all the answers we want. One of the themes here today is people talk about collaboration. This is a practical way that we can potentially collaborate and provide a solution that can change the industry for the better.
Well, give them a hand, 42 seconds over. Thank you.